Coming to the stage next, I love this fella. I've seen him tell many times. In his bio, I said, Bob, what do you like to do? And he said, I like good scotch and bad prose. So Bob likes to get drunk and tell stories, basically. He comes from a long line of storytellers in his family. I have seen the family McPhail get up here and tell stories, and they're all just wonderful. Now that he's retired, he gets to tell more stories and spend time looking for the perfect bit of sea glass and trying to make great photos. But tonight, he's here to tell some stories. So put your hands together for Bob. Bob, where are you? There you are, my friend.
So we're going to leave the great outdoors and go back to the city. You can call it encouragement or karma or being of the Lutheran persuasion. I like to talk about grace sufficient for the day. But however you choose to describe it, that's something that all of us need sometimes just to make it through life. And sometimes that can come from pretty unsurprising places. When I was in my late 20s, my wife was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. It is incurable, it is chronic. Ultimately, in her case, because it did not respond to medication and it was serious, some years later, it was ended her life. And I'm in my mid-20s. I dropped out of college, and I had to immediately find a full-time job with health insurance. That was the only job requirement I had, and I was hired by Payless Shoe Source to become a store manager. My first store assignment was in downtown San Francisco on the corner of 6th and Market, which is in the heart of the Tenderloin neighborhood. It is called the Tenderloin because back when San Francisco was naming things, the cops that worked that beat got hazardous duty pay. And the Tenderloin has remained really tough and chewy. I was not getting hazardous duty pay. I got a paycheck that usually made it to the next paycheck. In my first week as the manager of Payless Shoe Source 2771, instead of a visit from the welcome wagon, I got robbed at gunpoint. The robber got $23 and I got to have nightmares for a little while. But the next day I'm back at work because we could not afford the shortest lapse in either that paycheck or that health insurance. And I'm opening the store by myself. I had 2 coworkers, and they were very friendly, they were extremely reliable, and they had really good work ethic, just far beyond the kind of salaries that Payless Shoe Source paid. But in most retail chains, your payroll is determined by your revenue. And not surprisingly, a store in the middle of the Tenderloin has a bit of a shoplifting problem. And since revenue is based on sales and a lot of the shoes got taken before they could be sold, I would give my 2 coworkers as many hours as possible, and then I'm the manager, so I'm working whatever hours it took, mostly by myself, to keep that store open its hours and running well. Well, at least it wasn't dull. 6th and Market is 24 hours a day street theater. And it would have been more entertaining for me if some of the actors weren't in my store pulling outrageous stunts and taking stuff. And I therefore spent a lot of time up at the front of the store just kind of watching the door. And I start noticing there are these park benches on Market Street at the time, and there's the same 4 people sitting in the benches closest to my store. It's these 2 couples, and I make the assumption they're homeless. And one of the women must have noticed me noticing them because She like smiles and waves at me, and I nod politely back. The next morning, she pops through the front door. And the first thing she says is, don't worry. I'm not going to cause any problems. I'm not stealing anything. And she says, my name is Deborah. And as you know, my friends and I stay out on that bench, and we wanted to ask you something. We wanted to ask if you would just not bother us for being on that bench. And we promise we are not going to cause any problems. Now, it hadn't even occurred to me that I had any mandate to try to solve the urban problems of downtown San Francisco. I had 1,000 square foot of store. That was enough. And I'm like, that's fine. And we chat a little bit. Deborah's very friendly. And then she wanders out. Well, after that, I noticed that I started getting greeted a lot. It was, good morning, Mr. Payless, or have a good night, Mr. Payless. And the strange thing was those greetings were much more likely to happen when I was having a really tough day, and that was a lot. And also, I thought of them as the bench people. They absolutely kept the word. They never caused any problems whatsoever. And so I'm soldiering on because I had to keep that job. I'd started in October. We get to Christmas time. It's a rough Christmas. It is the first Christmas that my wife and I have spent a Christmas where there's no family anywhere nearby. We are totally broke. My wife has a bad flare-up, and we pretty much slept through Christmas Day. And on December 26th, I am back in my store, and I discovered that my store had a return season. People didn't come to Payless Shoe Source 771 right after Christmas to spend Christmas money or to perhaps exchange shoes for a different size or color. Mostly I was doing requests for cash returns because there were things that people craved more than shoes. And the returns were complicated, and I got to be the Grinch that enforced the return policy. And in my store, returns frequently lacked sales receipt. And they usually were claimed to be defective and well used. And a lot of them I suspected may not have been purchased, given the fact that about 7% of the shoes in my store walked out the door. It was pretty bad. And this was drama. And on the second or third day after Christmas, I have a profanity and threat-filled conversation about a pair of shoes. And I remember this pair of shoes. There was no sales receipt. They smelled of Christmas long past. And here's the thing, and this was not the first time this happened. They had not been produced to be sold at Payless. They were from J.C. Penney's. I'm at my limit. I'm just kind of slumped over my cash register. I'm disheartened and overwhelmed. And Deborah bounces through the door. She's got something in her hand. She comes up and she says, hey, Mr. Payless, we got you something. And she hands me this slightly creased envelope, and she says, open it. And the bench people had gotten a Christmas card. All four of them had personally signed it, and they were wishing myself and my coworkers a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I had not realized just how hard it was for me to work there, and I was really touched. I mean, I didn't even know what to say other than thank you, and I'm like, Merry Christmas to you guys too, and I really hope that you have a good coming year. And Deborah looks at me for a second, and she says, Mr. Payless, you okay? It's going to be all right. And then she just kind of wandered out of the store. Deborah was correct, because she had just gifted me with grace sufficient for the day. And I was all right. And I hope that she and her friends throughout the many years since then have had opportunities to find grace sufficient for the day too.
Keep it going for Bob.